to the Equestrian Queensland Fundamental Series. I'm Tani McCormack, Senior Sport Development Officer at Equestrian Queensland and Director of the series. First of all, congratulations on beginning your journey with your new off-the-track horse. This series has been designed to support you in successfully transitioning your horse from the racing industry, promoting high-quality healthcare and retraining foundations.
We thank QRIC, the Queensland Racing Integrity Commission, for funding this project through their Racing Animal Welfare Grants program. We are proud to support the promotion of life after racing. To follow the full series and for more resources, go to the Equestrian Queensland website and click on EQ Fundamental Series under the Education tab or follow the link below.
Hello, my name's Shane Gillard and I'm Queensland's Racing Integrity Commissioner. I'm pleased to introduce this Equestrian Queensland video series, which has been funded through the QRIC Equine Welfare Racing Animal Welfare Grants program. Established in 2016, the Queensland Racing Integrity Commission is an independent statutory body which oversees the integrity and welfare standards of racing animals and participants in Queensland. Partnerships are critical to how we work at the Commission, specifically to ensure that the rules of racing are upheld and to safeguard the welfare of racing animals to ensure that everyone can compete on an even playing field. This successful QRIC Rural Grant program has assisted Equestrian Queensland to develop these educational training videos to demonstrate important aspects of acquiring, assessing and re-educating retired racehorses to prepare them for their first equestrian sport competition. These videos raise the profile of alternative career opportunities for retired thoroughbred and standardbred horses and educate those in the market to purchase a retired racehorse in Queensland.
Welcome to the Equestrian Queensland Off the Track Fundamental Series supported by QRIC. My name is Mattea Davidson. I am an Equestrian Australia Level 2 coach, veterinarian, off the track approved coach, professional rider and retrainer for the Transitioning Thoroughbreds Foundation. Today we're going to talk about building confidence with your off the track by using a consistent routine. It's important when they come home that they understand what's expected of them. When they start their career as a racehorse, they do have that regularity of routine, which builds confidence, and we want to try and continue that as they come to their new life as a riding horse, to keep that confidence and be able to teach them new things so that they're comfortable and willing to learn in new environments. So we are going to start our session with him by putting him on the lunge. So we've wrapped our reins around the neck. Then what we do is we put just a standard halter over the bridle. So we do that when we start teaching them to lunge, so that we clip the lunge lead onto the inside bit, but then we also clip it on to the halter as well. So it means that if the horse hasn't done any lunging before, that you're not putting all that pressure on the inside of their mouth. We don't want the bit pulling through their mouth. We want to be able to have a bit more pressure actually on the bridge of their nose and on their face until they start to learn what lunging is about. So when we go to swap over, we put our clip to the ring and to the halter like we did the other way. And again, when we're moving them out on the circle, we want to make sure that they understand that they're moving away from us. So often when I start, I'll put their head and neck in the direction that I want, again, and then I'll stand at their shoulder and ask them to move off. Now, if you find they want to keep moving towards you, that's where you put your hand up. So a bit like when we're leading them, and starting off and walk. So it's really about, you're just trying to reinforce everything that you're wanting to do when you're in the saddle. So again, we go through our trot, walk, trot and canter. And we're just wanting that regularity. We don't want them too quick, so just a nice working trot. If you do find they're getting too quick, you can put them on a smaller circle. Do a few more transitions, so go walk, trot, Good, and if you do feel comfortable, again, having a good surface is important. If you're going to ask them to canter, that they feel stable. You don't want to be trotting or lunging them on a surface that's slippery. Because of the size of the circle, they're more likely to be unstable on their feet. So you want them to feel confident that if they go forward, that they're going to be able to stay on all 4 feet. Canter. We do find it's important that they learn to canter on the lunge, because you're going to expect them to canter on a small circle under saddle, and you don't want that to be the first time that they've ever cantered on a small circle. So we do try to incorporate lunging them on a 20-metre circle, and that they understand that before we expect them to do that with a rider on their back. Ooh. Ooh. So the progression for us, once the horse is comfortably lunging with the lunge lead with the clip attached from the bit to the halter, is we like to run the lead through the bit to the inside girth. So this is just starting to teach them about some bend, and it's a gentle way, and again, so we clip it onto something solid. So in this case, we've clipped it onto the girth. It's a gentle way of teaching them about that bend. So we're not forcing him into a frame, but he does understand about the inside rein at this stage from lunging him by clipping onto the ring and the halter. We're pushing him back out on the circle, and we don't want them to sort of zoom off and want to run away from us. We want them to do it with confidence, and that they're waiting for that aid to move forward. Good boy. So same as when we hop on. Ooh. The other thing is we want to make sure that we've got our lunge lead at the correct length. We don't want a big loop in it. We want to be able to have a soft, even contact, so that if we need to make adjustments, we're in the position to do it. So a bit like letting your reins get too long, it's the same idea. And that's really good. So we can see he's starting to want to take the contact forward. So this is the idea. By having this inside rein, we can create that connection with his mouth and encourage him to take the bit forward and down. So we're not sort of forcing him into a frame, we're really encouraging him to take that connection, take our hand forward and make his neck a little longer. So then another thing with our progression of the lunging is just bringing them in on the circle, trying to keep the speed of the trot consistent. So bring them in on the circle, that's asking them to engage their hind end a little bit more, and then spiraling out. So woo, pushing the whip or pointing the whip towards their shoulder, making the circle a bit bigger, woo, so that you're giving some variation to their work. And then coming in again. Good boy. Woo. Good boy. Woo. Yeah, and that's a good sign. We can see that he's relaxing with his work, but is nice and active there. Woo. So trying to maintain that even working trot. So the other thing we want to make sure that we're doing is that consistency of changing rein. So what we normally do is a couple of minutes on one rein and then we change to the other rein. If they're a little bit fresh to start with, we're not too worried about them sort of being perfect at the beginning. We just want to make sure that they're even. Lunging horses on small circles is quite hard work for them, so we don't want them to be on one rein for too long. So one of the important aspects of getting the horse to stand still on the ground and them understanding that personal space and waiting for you, waiting for that next command, is that when we do go to hop on them, that they do stand still and that they are waiting for us before they move off. So we've got our neck strap there. I like to put my hand underneath it. I have my reins, neck strap, and I hold on to a little bit of mane as well, just to help stabilise myself. So I always start with the same routine, so hopping up next to them, patting the saddle, hopping down, and you can do that. You can use it like a bit of a gym exercise, so it's like you're getting your steps up. So the more times that you do this, you're just working on that desensitising and him understanding that if you move around, he doesn't need to move off straight away. So that he's waiting for that command to move off rather than just doing it of his own accord. So patting, again, letting him know something's about to happen. Then when I put my foot again in the stirrup and putting our foot in the stirrup, hand in the middle of the saddle so that you're not pulling the saddle over. And again, hopping up. So we try to hop up on one leg, swinging our leg over. And then again, if they do want to move off, keeping that bend to the inside until they understand that we want them to stand still. So we've got on and we need to make a bit of a plan for what we want to do for them for the day. So at the beginning, when we had these horses off the track, we're just wanting to establish the basic foundation. So really one of the first things that I do is I want to be able to walk forward and stop, and walk forward and stop. I want to be able to turn left and right. So I want to be able to do those really basic things. So with this guy, again, we've got our neck strap here. So I always have one hand around that so that if they do shoot forward, that I'm not reliant on their mouth for balance. So I put one hand through that. I have my whip. I'm asking him to move forward. And I'll even just hold him again. Often when I go to put my leg on, not much happens. So if we think of a light aid, so this is me squeezing with my leg and he's not moving anywhere. He just doesn't understand what that means. He will in time, but at the moment he doesn't. So then I think I want to put on a heavier leg aid and he's moved forward, so that's great. And then I'm just lightly resting my legs there. So I try not to nag every single step. Often the steering's not going to be super at the beginning, so we need to make sure that we've planned our ride. So looking ahead early, turning early, and keeping that forward momentum is key. So if you're letting them sort of go back, and we can see here is not really walking. If you're almost draw to a halt, you're going to find the steering even harder. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm putting my leg on and he's not doing a whole lot. Little tap on the shoulder with the whip. And I'm asking him to move forward. I'm guiding with that inside rein. And it's not what I like about this guy is he sort of pokes his nose out. I'm not trying to get him into a frame at all. So that's really important, is that we're not pressuring them into a frame that they don't understand. I definitely have contact with his mouth that even and he can basically put his nose, put his head and neck wherever, as long as the steering is where I want. So my legs are really doing the forward aid, and I'm supporting the steering with the inside rein. You can see here he wants to go back to the gate, so I'm opening that inside rein, but I don't want him to stop there. He's got to keep moving forward. You can see here now he's wanting to drift to the inside. So with that outside hand, I'm opening it. So if we talk about choosing a track I want him to go on, so I'm on a circle. I want him to keep walking forward without having to kick him every stride. So reinforcing with the whip as needed. And that he learns that he's got to keep moving forward. If he goes to drift to the outside, I open that inside rein up, and vice versa. If he drifts to the inside, I open the outside rein up, and I try to keep him as much on that designated track, that imaginary track, as possible. So we're just establishing that communication, so lots of asking them to halt. And it is important when you ask them to halt that they do actually stand still, that they don't keep creeping through in the halt. Once they're there, you can give them a pat, bit of reassurance, and then ask them to move on again. So it is important that you're clear about what you want at that point in time. So we can see here when we go past the gate is sort of wanting to go home. So I'm just reinforcing that forward 8 a little more. So using my seat, but not too much. I don't want to dull him to that early in the process. Supporting with my leg and then tapping with the whip as I needed. So then the next thing is we want to change rein. So lots of changes of rein are really good to do early on. Check that you've got your steering. So accelerator, your brake, your left and your right. And this guy does seem to find it a little easier this way, probably because he's raced this way, so it's a bit more comfortable. So again, asking him to halt. Ooh. And we do want them to stay fairly straight when they halt. We don't want them sort of swinging their bum around, but what's the most important thing is that they just stand still. So if I was on a horse in this case, so we can see he's moving a little bit, one of the things I do to get them to stand still, and this is where we've done it on the ground, is spin them to the inside. So I'm opening that inside rein until he does eventually. And again, you just sort of have to be patient. Don't feel like if they don't do it immediately that all is lost. It's about just giving them that task. Don't change the question. Keep the question the same, which in this case is getting him to stand still. And then once he gives you the right answer, you take the pressure off. Good boy. Good. Good boy. That's great. And then you go on with the next job. So stood still. Now I ask him to walk forward again. So there is a... If they do get stuck, you can then use that circle to move them forward again. Okay, and then we'll go forward into trot. So again, I'm using that neck strap for that bit of stability. And really using that inside rein to help guide him around. You do have a fenced area, especially a high fenced area. You can use your fence as well to help you with the steering if you're struggling. So there he's not quite in a working trot, so I'll just get him to move a little more forward. And really guiding. So I have my outside rein there quite secure, holding on to the neck strap, and I'm really guiding with my inside rein. And this is where, so if I go to change, I'll swap over. So again, hold on to the strap with my outside rein and guiding with that inside. So again, you can see. So one thing we don't want to do is get too put up the neck with the upper body. So getting him to go forward. This time. So I'm going to keep my leg on, try to start turning a bit earlier. That's it. Keep the pressure on. Good boy. So we can see he's weaker on this rein. And what I want to try and do is thinking fast. So guiding. You can pick it up with I say boy. So once you've had a couple of successes there, you can change a little easier and try and sort of end on a really positive note. Good, that's better. So one of the things when they've been on a racetrack is they've got a nice big open space to be able to move forward, and then suddenly we've sort of got in these smaller areas which requires a lot more balance from them. So it's important we don't sort of shut everything down too much. So they've got to use a bit of that forward momentum to be able to propel them forward into the canter. They're not going to be able to sort of necessarily step under themselves into a nice frame straight away. So you've got to be ready to be able to let them to be a bit looser to get them to travel forward. So starting out, sort of try and pick the rein that they find it a little easier on to start with when you're asking for that canter. And you may have to make the trot a little bit bigger. It may not be, picture perfect straight away, and that's absolutely okay. So don't try and get everything perfect. What you're wanting to do is steering. That's important, and getting them to move forward. Oh boy. So we can see that the cantering in a small space can be quite hard. So I'm making sure I'm not pulling back too much and keep that forward momentum. So quite soft with the contact, but really clear where I want him to go. And this is where having and the fence is really useful, so they learn from the beginning the correct way. Good boy, that was better. Oh, and it's quite hard work for them, we need to remember. Oh. So we've cantered on the right lead first, which is the easier lead for him at this stage. Then we cantered onto the left lead, which he finds a little bit harder. But in time, we just need to make sure we've got that consistent approach and not expect too much of him. The more patient that you can be, just go bit by bit. And then the other thing to remember is go back to something that they find easy. So if you've done something that they find challenging, so for his case it's cantering on the left rein, then we might go back onto the right rein in trot and just trot a circle. Do something that you know that they can do well and gives them confidence. Because a lot of training young horses and training horses off the track is reinforcing tasks, reinforcing things that you ask them to do, and always going back to something that they feel confident with. Because it's a bit like us when we're learning. If you feel like you're confident with something, if you're willing to give something a go, then you're going to be braver about it. So if we talk about what we would do to help him with that, we would be working on cantering on the lunge. So for me to expect him to be able to do it with a rider under saddle, he's got to be able to do it on his own first. So I really like lunging for them. And we can see here he's sort of saying, I don't want to stand still anymore. So that, again, if we just talk about different things, that's where we'd give him a little task. So for me, an easy thing is just turning them in a circle. He wants to move forward. I want him to stay in one spot. So I'm saying to him, well, you can stay in this one spot and move, and then eventually, hopefully he'll decide that it's actually easier to stand still, but I'm not doing it with pressure. So he's got to stand there on a soft rein. I'm not going to keep asking him every second to stand still. I give him the benefit of the doubt. If he wants to sort of test the waters again, then I keep reinforcing with the same job. So again, what I would say is most important is don't ask a different question because they've given you the wrong answer. You've just got to keep asking that question. You may have to ask it in a slightly different way, but the question remains the same. The other thing to ask yourself is, am I asking the right question? So is it acceptable for where they're at in their training? So if you had a year 7 student at school, you're not going to give them a grade 12 maths test because it's unacceptable for the level where they're at. They're going to get stressed. They're going to be worried because they don't know the answers. So it's exactly the same with horses. I'm not going to expect him to suddenly go and do half pass because he doesn't know yet how to move off my leg. So I always have to ask when they're struggling with something, am I asking them a question that's acceptable for their level of training and where they're at, so that they can actually understand and that they stay calm through the process, that they're listening, and that they don't get stressed because they're not able to give us an answer yet that they're ready for. So I'd say the clear message from today is have a clear plan about what you're trying to achieve on that day. So short and long-term goals, be consistent in your approach, and seek advice from someone that you trust and that you respect and that has been there and done it before. I think that's absolutely the key is for all of us is you're seeking that instruction, that mentorship from people that have been there and done it before and can support you, because absolutely there'll be some bits that will be a little tough, and you need someone at that point in time that can guide you through that process with confidence, and that you'll get out the other side.